Imagine a woman once hailed as the new Princess Diana, now secretly banned from an entire country. And this isn't fiction, but the shocking reality of Meghan Markle in Australia. In this video, we'll dissect how her 2018 triumph turned into a complete collapse, full of intrigue, betrayal, and humiliating secrets that will leave you breathless until the very end. The events of 2018, when Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was welcomed as a star in Australia, were covered in the media as a triumph and the apotheosis of her fairy tale romance with Prince Harry. However, as royal biographer Tom Bower now reveals in his book Revenge, behind this facade lies a shocking reality. Meghan Markle is effectively banned from Australia. This ban isn't legal, not based on any high-profile decree, but much more devastating. It's a complete and unconditional rejection by a country that once embraced her with open arms. The woman who considered herself the new Princess Diana and saw that Australian tour as proof of her global fame can now not even get an invitation to the land down under. The reasons for this state of affairs are truly staggering. It's not just about hurt feelings or royal protocol, but about deliberate, systematic efforts designed to ensure that Meghan Markle never sets foot on Australian soil again as a representative of the royal family or anyone else. Tom Bower, a renowned investigative journalist, reveals the astonishing truth about the Australian side's ignoring of the Sussexes in his scandalous biography. According to his research, there are two devastating reasons why Meghan will never return to Australia, and both demonstrate how far her current status is from that golden moment in 2018 when she seemed to have conquered the Commonwealth. The first reason is political and absolutely ruthless. Bower claims that the Australian government should have invited the couple back. However, as he emphasizes, they won't, as the British government and the royal family will do everything to ensure that such an invitation is never extended. This means that the family Meghan married into, and the institution from which she allegedly suffered, now have the power to block her entry into entire countries. In effect, she has become persona non grata throughout the Commonwealth, and Australia is just the beginning. The second reason is perhaps even more humiliating for someone as obsessed with her image as Meghan Markle. According to Bower's shocking research, Harry and Meghan only travel at someone else's expense. The couple, who once received millions for Netflix deals and resided in a $16 million mansion in Montecito, apparently cannot afford to finance their own trip to Australia. The cost of such a trip is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for what? What exactly could they offer? What product, brand, or message could they promote that Australians would want to buy? This is the same woman who spent $300,000 on jewelry, including Princess Diana's Cartier watch, to attend a beach party at Kevin Costner's house. She can afford to flash diamonds on a casual Saturday evening in Santa Barbara, but apparently can't finance a trip to a continent where she once believed she had found her calling. This math doesn't add up unless you understand the deeper truth that Bower has revealed. The Australian ban is not just about politics or money. It's something far more personal and devastating to Meghan's carefully constructed image. The fact is that Australia, like many other countries, has seen through the facade. They have watched her evolve since 2018 and want nothing to do with who she has become. But the story gets even worse. The Australian situation is just the tip of the iceberg. The political silent blocking by Australia is not a conspiracy theory or royal gossip, but a cold-blooded, calculated political strategy. When Tom Bower states that the British government and the royal family will ensure that an invitation is not extended, he is describing a coordinated effort spanning continents and governments. This is diplomatic warfare at its most sophisticated, and Meghan Markle is its target. Imagine how this plays out behind closed doors. Australian officials, when considering any royal visits or Commonwealth events, do not make decisions in isolation. They consult with British diplomatic channels, coordinate with Buckingham Palace, and follow established protocols that have been in place for decades. Bower reveals that these same channels and protocols are now being used as weapons against the Sussexes. The British Foreign Office, which used to facilitate and encourage royal visits to Commonwealth countries, is now actively obstructing any official recognition of Harry and Meghan's quasi-royal activities. The goal is not just to prevent them from representing the Crown, but also to prevent any confusion about their status or authority. Australia, as a key Commonwealth nation, is meticulously following these diplomatic signals. The political dimension goes even deeper than government coordination. According to Bauer's research, there is a fundamental understanding among Commonwealth countries. Allowing the Sussexes to act as rogue royals would create a dangerous precedent. If Harry and Meghan can conduct royal-style tours without palace approval, what's to stop other disgruntled royals from doing the same? What's to stop them from creating competing centers of power that undermine the very foundation of the constitutional monarchy? Australia learned this lesson firsthand during the Republic debate. They understand better than most how fragile the balance is between tradition and modern relevance. The last thing they want is to become a stage for Harry and Meghan's attempts to create an alternative royal brand. The political risks are simply too high, and the benefits are virtually non-existent. Harry and Meghan's Nigerian trip was a prime example of why such a coordinated blocking strategy exists. This quasi-royal tour created exactly the kind of confusion and controversy that Commonwealth governments are eager to avoid. Sources close to the situation report that British officials were furious about the trip to Nigeria, not only because it was unsanctioned, but also because it created diplomatic complications and blurred the lines of official representation. Australia watched this fiasco and drew its own conclusions. If they allowed Harry and Meghan to return for any official or semi-official event, they would find themselves in the same minefield, facing questions about authorization, royal protocol, and the legitimization of the Sussexes' independent activities. The political headaches are simply not worth the minimal benefits that their presence might bring. The political rejection is all the more devastating for Meghan because it is not based on personal animosity or petty revenge, but on cold political calculation. Australian officials are blocking them not because they personally dislike them, but because accepting them would create more problems than solutions. In the ruthless world of international diplomacy, this is the strongest indictment. The woman who once believed she could charm her way to global influence has discovered that politics doesn't care about star power or media attention. It cares about stability, protocol, and avoiding unnecessary complications. And at present, Harry and Meghan represent nothing but complications. But the political blockade is only half the story. What has happened to public opinion in Australia since the 2018 tour is even more shocking. The numbers speak for themselves, and any celebrity publicist would break out in a cold sweat from them. As of mid to late 2025, Harry and Meghan's popularity in Australia has plummeted to record lows. Poll data shows that they are now among the least popular members of the royal family, and public perception has declined so dramatically since the 2018 royal tour that it's hard to believe they are the same people who once gathered cheering crowds in Sydney and Melbourne. But what makes this collapse even more remarkable is that they haven't returned to Australia since that tour. Not once. Think about that for a minute. If the 2018 visit was truly the triumph they claimed, if Meghan truly found her calling as a global humanitarian, and Harry found a connection to his royal family, wouldn't you expect them to return? Wouldn't you expect them to build on that relationship, build on that foundation, leverage that supposed success? Instead, we've witnessed a complete abandonment of what should have been their strongest international base. Tom Bauer points to this obvious strategic failure with merciless clarity. If they truly believed that the trip to Australia was transformative, why wouldn't they try to maintain that popularity? The answer reveals everything about their true priorities and a fundamental misunderstanding of how true influence actually works. The Australian public has watched Harry and Meghan's post-royal trajectory with growing skepticism and outright disdain. What began as curiosity about an American actress marrying their prince has evolved into something far harsher. Australians pride themselves on their ability to distinguish genuine people from those who pretend to be, and Meghan's subsequent behavior has failed that test miserably. The constant complaints about royal life, the explosive Oprah Winfrey interview filled with accusations that were subsequently debunked, the endless cycle of victimhood narratives, none of it resonates with the Australian mindset. Australians have their own complex relationship with the British monarchy, but they respect institutions and value hard work above celebrity complaints. Meghan's approach to post-royal life has violated all the principles that Australians hold dear. Respect must be earned, not demanded. Particularly damaging to Meghan's image in Australia is how her behavior contrasts with that of other members of the royal family whom they see regularly. When William and Kate visit Australia, they work, they engage with local communities, they support local initiatives, They show a genuine interest in Australian issues and Australians. They don't come to take pictures and leave. They don't use Australia as a backdrop for building their personal brand. Harry and Meghan's approach has always been different, even during the 2018 tour. According to sources who spoke to Tom Bauer, there were already concerns about their priorities and attitude even then. The tour was successful in terms of media coverage and public appearances, but behind the scenes, concerns were already emerging about their focus on image management rather than genuine engagement. The Australian media, which initially covered them favorably, became increasingly critical as the Sussexes' brand evolved. Australian journalists, known for their forthrightness, did not hesitate to point out the contradictions in Meghan's public persona. They noted how a person who complained about media intrusion now seeks publicity at every opportunity. They questioned how a person who claimed privacy had built her entire post-royal career on revealing personal details. This media skepticism seeped into public opinion, creating a feedback loop that has become increasingly negative for the Sussexes. Unlike the American media, which still treats them with a certain celebrity indulgence, Australian publications approach them like any other public figures, with scrutiny rather than reverence. The final nail in the coffin of their Australian popularity may be their association with causes and statements that do not align with Australian values. Their political commentary, their celebrity friends, their lifestyle. All of it has been noted and evaluated by the Australian public, which values substance over style. But the real reason they can't return to Australia goes beyond public opinion. It's about a systematic strategy to completely cut them off from the entire Commonwealth. The Commonwealth blocking strategy revealed by Tom Bauer is not just about Australia. It is a comprehensive, coordinated effort designed to ensure that Harry and Meghan can never again use Commonwealth countries as a stage for their rogue royal performances. The Nigerian trip was not just awkward. It became the catalyst that made this blocking strategy absolutely necessary from the British government's perspective. When Harry and Meghan flew to Nigeria and conducted a tour that looked like an official royal visit, they crossed a line that both the Foreign Office and Buckingham Palace feared. They created the very constitutional confusion that Commonwealth governments spend enormous resources trying to avoid. Here were two people who had stepped down from royal duties, who had been stripped of their official patronages, behaving as if they still represented the crown. The diplomatic consequences of the Nigerian visit were immediate and serious. British officials were reportedly furious not only because the visit was unsanctioned, but also because it created real confusion about Britain's official position on various issues. When making statements or appearing at events, were Harry and Meghan speaking for themselves or on behalf of Britain? Did their positions reflect official British policy? This uncertainty was diplomatically toxic. Australia watched this and drew immediate conclusions about what accepting the Sussexes would mean for its own international relations. If they invited Harry and Meghan to any official or semi-official event, they would find themselves in the same constitutional minefield. They would have to answer questions from the British government, other Commonwealth countries, and their own parliament about whether they were legitimizing unauthorized royal activity. The Commonwealth Secretariat, which coordinates relations between member countries, is also concerned about the Sussexes' situation. These countries work together on common values and goals, but they also respect the constitutional framework that governs royal representation. When Harry and Meghan act outside of that framework, they create complications that spread throughout the entire Commonwealth system. What makes this blocking strategy so effective is that it doesn't require loud pronouncements or public confrontations. It works through quiet diplomatic channels, subtle pressure, and behind-the-scenes coordination that ensures the smooth functioning of international relations. Australia doesn't need to publicly announce that they are blocking the Sussexes. It's enough for them to follow the diplomatic signals they receive from London. The irony of the situation is devastating for Meghan, who once saw the Commonwealth as her path to global influence. During that Australian tour in 2018, she reportedly believed she was positioning herself as an influential Commonwealth figure, capable of bridging cultural barriers and representing British values on the world stage. Instead, her subsequent behavior has made her persona non grata in the very network she hoped to dominate. Tom Bower's research shows that British officials are particularly concerned about preventing Sussex's tours to Commonwealth countries because these countries have a special constitutional relationship with the Crown. Unlike other international destinations, Commonwealth countries have legitimate expectations regarding royal protocol and representation. When Harry and Meghan blur these lines, they create not only PR problems, but also constitutional crises. The strategy has proven surprisingly successful. Since the Nigerian fiasco, there have been no official invitations for Sussex's tours to Commonwealth countries. No government wants to deal with the diplomatic complications, constitutional questions, and inevitable friction with London that would result from hosting them. The cost-benefit analysis is simple. The risks far outweigh any potential benefits. For Meghan, this means the collapse of what was supposed to be her greatest strategic advantage. Marriage to Harry should have given her access to this incredible network of countries, this global platform for influence and impact. Instead, her behavior has turned that network into a closed door, a reminder of missed opportunities and burned bridges. The Commonwealth blockade is not just about preventing future tours. It's a clear signal about the consequences of trying to act as unofficial royals. It's a demonstration that the institutional power of the monarchy extends far beyond Britain, and that challenging that institution has real long-term consequences. But even if the diplomatic doors weren't slammed shut, there is another problem making international travel practically impossible for the Sussexes. Tom Bower made a shocking statement, revealing how far they have fallen. According to his scandalous research, Harry and Meghan only travel at someone else's expense. Think about that for a moment. A couple who once received millions from Netflix live in a $16 million mansion and can spend $300,000 on jewelry for a beach party, supposedly cannot afford to fund their own international travel. The cost of a full-blown trip to Australia would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. This includes security, accommodation, transportation, staff, and all the logistics involved in moving two high-profile individuals around the world. For most celebrities of their supposed caliber, these would be standard business expenses. For Harry and Meghan, according to Bower's findings, this has become an insurmountable obstacle. This financial reality explains much about their recent travel itineraries. The trip to Nigeria, the visit to Colombia, these were not just random destinations chosen for their humanitarian value. These were places where local governments or organizations were willing to foot the bill for their presence. They have become reliant on others funding their international activities, which severely limits their choices of where to go and what they can accomplish. The situation with Australia becomes even more humiliating when you consider what they could offer if they managed to get there. Bower's ruthless assessment strikes at the heart of their commercial crisis. What exactly could they promote? A jam business that never launched, Netflix content that was met with universal disapproval, a lifestyle brand that exists more in press releases than in reality. Their product portfolio has collapsed so dramatically that even if someone were willing to pay for their visit to Australia, it's unclear what the value proposition would be. They are no longer working royals, so they can't offer official representation. They aren't successful entertainers, so they can't offer compelling content. They aren't respected humanitarians, so they can't offer meaningful advocacy. This creates a vicious cycle that Bower identifies as central to their current crisis. They need international exposure to maintain their brand relevance, but they can't afford international travel without someone else paying for it. They need successful projects to justify international travel, but they can't create successful projects without international platforms. They are trapped in a downward spiral of their own making. The contrast with their early post-royal period is stark. Back then, they were paid millions just for showing up somewhere, just for lending their name to projects, just for being the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, according to Bower's research, they are struggling to find anyone willing to cover the basic travel expenses for their appearances. But the money problem is just a symptom of a much deeper issue. What exactly are they trying to sell to the world? Tom Bower's most devastating question strikes at the heart of the Sussexes' crisis. What are they selling? This isn't just about marketing or brand strategy. It's a fundamental collapse of their value proposition as public figures. When Bower asks what they could promote in Australia, he exposes an uncomfortable truth. Harry and Meghan have become celebrities without substance, famous for being famous, rather than for any significant accomplishments. The jam business that Meghan teased for months has never materialized into actual products that people can buy. The lifestyle brand that was supposed to revolutionize our understanding of wellness and luxury exists primarily in carefully staged Instagram posts and press releases. The Netflix content has been widely criticized as self-indulgent and out of touch with audience interests. So what exactly could they sell to Australians who pride themselves on valuing authenticity over celebrity status? Their commercial failures have been spectacular and public. The Spotify podcast deal, which was supposed to establish Meghan as a major media voice, ended with executives reportedly calling them grifters. The partnership with Netflix, intended to showcase their creative talents, has yielded content that even their most lenient critics struggle to defend. Every venture they undertake seems to lose momentum and credibility within months of its launch. Bauer points out that this commercial toxicity makes them practically unmarketable. Brands don't want to be associated with controversy and declining relevance. Governments don't want to host individuals who can't deliver meaningful results. Audiences don't want to invest time and attention in personalities who promise transformation, but deliver only complaints and lifestyle content. The contrast with successful celebrity brands is stark. When other high-profile individuals travel the world, they are promoting specific projects, supporting real initiatives, or advancing clear agendas. They offer something more than just their presence. Harry and Meghan have somehow managed to turn themselves into celebrities whose primary product is their own fame, a self-contained proposition that becomes less appealing with each failed venture. What makes their commercial collapse even more tragic is that they started with incredible advantages. The Sussexes brand should have been invincible, combining royal heritage with American entrepreneurial spirit, humanitarian credentials with media savvy, tradition with innovation. Instead, they have managed to squander every advantage through poor decisions and a fundamental misunderstanding of what audiences actually want. The Australian market, in particular, was perfectly suited to their supposed brand values. Australians value environmental consciousness, social justice, and genuine communication. But instead of developing genuine expertise in these areas, Harry and Meghan have offered only superficial celebrity activism and lifestyle content that feels detached from real-world issues. Their inability to answer the simple question, "What are they selling?" exposes a deeper problem in their understanding of public life and commercial success. They seem to believe that their personal stories and grievances constitute a product worth paying for when the market has clearly demonstrated otherwise. But their commercial failures pale in comparison to how their unofficial royal tours have backfired on the international stage. The Nigeria trip was not just a diplomatic embarrassment. It was a masterclass in how to destroy an international reputation in one carefully orchestrated disaster. Tom Bauer's research shows that this quasi-royal tour didn't just anger British officials. It created a template for why no Commonwealth country wants to deal with the Sussexes. The consequences were immediate, severe, and utterly predictable to anyone who understood international protocol. When Harry and Meghan landed in Nigeria and began behaving like working royals, it set off alarm bells in foreign ministries across the Commonwealth. Here were two individuals who had explicitly stepped away from royal duties, who had been stripped of their official patronages, who had spent years criticizing the very institution they were now attempting to represent. The constitutional confusion was immediate and toxic. British diplomatic channels went into overdrive, trying to manage the damage. Officials were repeatedly forced to clarify that this was not an official royal visit, that Harry and Meghan did not represent the Crown, and that their statements and appearances should not be taken as a reflection of British government policy. The very fact that such clarifications were necessary demonstrated how badly the Sussexes had miscalculated. Commonwealth governments watched this with growing apprehension. If Nigeria could be coerced or persuaded into hosting an unofficial royal tour, what was to stop other countries from facing similar requests? What precedent was being set for former royals to conduct independent engagements, blurring the lines of official representation? The implications were alarming for the entire Commonwealth system. The Nigerian administration itself seemed unprepared for the diplomatic complications that their invitation had created. What they had envisioned as a prestigious cultural exchange devolved into a source of international tension and constitutional confusion. They found themselves forced to navigate between respecting their guests and the pressure from British diplomatic channels, which were furious about the unofficial nature of the visit. For other Commonwealth countries, the Nigerian fiasco served as a perfect example of why hosting the Sussexes would be a diplomatic nightmare. Australia, in particular, took careful note of how a simple invitation had escalated into an international incident. Their own complex relationship with the British monarchy made them particularly sensitive to any actions that could blur constitutional boundaries or set a precedent for unsanctioned royal activity. The tour also demonstrated just how out of touch Harry and Meghan had become with the realities of international protocol. They seemed genuinely surprised by the negative reaction, apparently believing they could conduct royal-style tours without consequences. This fundamental misunderstanding of how diplomacy actually works only reinforced concerns about their judgment and their grasp of their post-royal status. What made the backlash even more devastating was how it exposed their motives. This wasn't about humanitarian work or cultural exchange. It was about maintaining a semblance of royal relevance while building their personal brand. The Nigeria trip became a perfect example of them trying to have their cake and eat it too, retaining royal privileges without royal responsibilities. But while their international reputation was collapsing, signs of desperation were becoming increasingly evident much closer to home. Tom Bower noticed the most telling sign of Meghan's growing desperation, and it happened at a beach party in Santa Barbara when she showed up at Kevin Costner's charity event for first responders wearing $300,000 worth of jewelry, including Princess Diana's Cartier watch. This wasn't just a fashion statement. According to Bower, it was a bid to be noticed at any cost by anyone who would pay attention. The most damning detail, she skipped the exact same event last year. In 2023, when Meghan was still promoting her Netflix series and trying to maintain a semblance of A-list status, she didn't bother attending a charity event in her own neighborhood. She didn't want to be seen with Harry, and certainly didn't want to appear at something that could make her look cheap or attention-seeking. But 2024 told a very different story. Suddenly, the same event she had ignored was worthy of her presence, complete with a display of jewelry that cost more than most houses. Bower recognizes this behavior for what it is, the actions of someone desperately trying to stay relevant and increasingly willing to lower their standards to achieve that relevance. The contrast between these 2 years reveals everything about Meghan's declining position. When she had Netflix content to promote and still believed she could maintain her carefully crafted image, she was selective about her appearances. She could afford to be picky about which events were worthy of her presence. But as her commercial prospects collapsed and her star power waned, suddenly every opportunity became worth pursuing. What makes the Kevin Costner event appearance even more pathetic is its transparently calculated nature. According to Bower, she spent hours preparing for what was essentially a local charity event. Hours choosing an outfit, selecting jewelry, perfecting her appearance. All for an event it will give minimal media coverage and associate her with people who cannot advance her career in any meaningful way. This isn't the behavior of someone confident in their position or future prospects. It's the behavior of someone who realizes their options are rapidly dwindling and who is willing to accept any attention they can get. A woman who once believed she could command global audiences is now grateful for the opportunity to pose for pictures at a beach party in Santa Barbara. Power's observation that she is desperate to be seen, and that this desperation is becoming increasingly apparent to anyone paying attention. The carefully managed image of post-royal Meghan has given way to something far more feverish and less appealing, but Kevin Costner's party was just a symptom of a much larger crisis that had been brewing for months. Tom Power's assessment of their financial situation is ruthless and uncompromising. Meghan has no real income anymore. She's done. The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They're not earning any money. According to his research, the woman who once received millions for exclusive deals now faces a crisis threatening the very foundation of her post-royal existence. The numbers tell a devastating story. The partnership with Spotify, which was supposed to establish Meghan as a major figure in podcasting, ended in public humiliation when executives reportedly used expressions that cannot be repeated in polite society. The deal with Netflix, designed to showcase their creative talents, has yielded content that even their most lenient supporters struggle to defend. Every revenue stream they've tried to develop has either collapsed or failed to materialize. Power points out that it's not just one or two failed projects. It's a systematic inability to transform celebrity status into sustainable income. They had access to the best agents, the most influential producers, the most prestigious platforms, and they managed to squander every opportunity through poor decisions and a fundamental misunderstanding of what audiences actually want. The Archwell Foundation, which was supposed to be their vehicle for meaningful charitable work, has become another symbol of their declining influence. Power reveals that it doesn't really function as a charity in any meaningful sense. It's a commercial organization that gives very little money away because they don't have that much money in the kitty. Compared to truly successful philanthropists who give away hundreds of millions, they are operating on a scale that is almost embarrassingly small. Their lifestyle makes the financial crisis even grimmer. The mansion in Montecito, private security, designer wardrobes, all of this requires a huge, constant income to maintain. But their ability to generate that income has evaporated along with their commercial reputation. They live like A-list celebrities, earning like fledgling influencers. A mathematical impossibility that can only end one way. The timing is not ideal for rebuilding their brand. Just when they need successful projects the most to restore their reputation, they find that their reputation as difficult to work with and commercially unsuccessful people has made them virtually unemployable in the entertainment industry. Nobody wants to work with people known for creating drama and failing to deliver results. What makes their financial crisis particularly poignant is how avoidable it was. They started with the most favorable conditions: royal connections, global fame, sympathetic media coverage, and unlimited opportunities. The fact that they managed to transform all of that into financial uncertainty reveals something profound about their judgment and their understanding of how success is actually achieved. But their money troubles are just one symptom of a much larger question about their relevance and future in the public space. Australia's final verdict on Harry and Meghan is not written in any official document, but etched in stone by their actions and their silence. The land down under, which once welcomed them with open arms and cheering crowds, has delivered the most damning judgment possible: complete indifference. They went from curiosity to disappointment, and then to active rejection. And there is no coming back from such a reputational collapse. Tom Power's research shows that Australian polls now rank them among the least popular members of the royal family, a striking turnaround from their 2018 tour, when they were treated like conquering heroes, but the numbers tell only part of the story. The real verdict lies in Australia's complete lack of interest in engaging with them on any level, official or otherwise. Australian media, once eager to cover their every move, now treat them as cautionary tales rather than celebrities worthy of attention. When they are mentioned, it is usually in the context of what not to do, how not to leverage royal privilege, how not to build sustainable public influence. They have become examples of missed opportunities, not figures worthy of admiration or attention. Australian officials have made their position abundantly clear through actions, not words. No invitations, no proposals, no interest in any kind of collaboration or interaction. This is not a personal feud. It's a professional assessment. They have assessed what Harry and Meghan have to offer and concluded that the answer is nothing of value. The cultural divide has become insurmountable. Australians value hard work, genuine achievement, and real contributions to society. Harry and Meghan's post-royal trajectory embodies everything that Australian culture rejects: fame without substance, privilege without responsibility, complaints without solutions. They have managed to violate every principle that Australians hold dear. Respect must be earned, not demanded. Perhaps the most telling thing is how Australia has moved on without them. Royal events, Commonwealth celebrations, charitable initiatives, all of these continue without any recognition that Harry and Meghan exist. They have been completely erased from the Australian narrative, not through loud confrontation, but through simple indifference. Their banishment from Australia is not exactly a ban. It's something far worse: irrelevance. It's a recognition that they have transformed themselves from intriguing public figures into cautionary tales. Australia has delivered its final verdict, not through angry rejection, but through complete neglect. In the land down under, Harry and Meghan have become exactly what they feared most: forgotten. The woman who once believed she could conquer the Commonwealth has been conquered by her own choices, her own behavior, and her own fundamental misunderstanding of what it takes to maintain respect and relevance on the world stage. The door to Australia is not just closed, it has been permanently sealed and the keys thrown away. Despite the recent news about Meghan Markle and her lifestyle show on Netflix indicating a clearly positive trend in promoting the Duchess's personal brand, critics of the former royal are skeptical of her idea to promote the show through her own children. If you monitor Meghan's social media, it's easy to notice that Archie Sussex and Lilibet Sussex appear more and more frequently in recent posts. And the recent sale of personal business products of Meghan's brand called As Ever, which sold out in minutes, completely pushed the Duchess to flood her account with royal grandchildren. Against the backdrop of Meghan's sudden desire to immerse Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet in the life of her social networks, the question naturally arises, how does their father, Prince Harry, feel about this? The Sun editor Matt Wilkinson is confident that the Duke of Sussex would prefer to keep his children away from social media and paparazzi. Meghan's desire to fill her entire account with content featuring Archie and Lilibet in order to increase reach and attract even more attention to the launch of a new product probably caused Harry to worry about the future of the little ones. Harry doesn't want them to be photographed by paparazzi. He feels that if he takes them outside of Montecito, there will be a crowd of photographers trying to photograph his children, Wilkinson explains. And although Harry has probably shared his anxious thoughts with his wife, judging by the fact that Archie and Lilibet continued to flood the Duchess's social media for the first day, she put her own opinion as a priority. Since Duchess Meghan grew up in California and, after leaving the BCS, was probably thrilled to return to the places of her childhood with a star husband, one should expect that she will also accustom the little Archie and Lilibet to Southern California life. Visiting beaches, walking in the busiest areas, and joint hobbies without having to hide from the public will surely soon enter the life of King Charles's grandchildren.